Meeting for March 8th.
Sixth.
Called to order.
It's not
March
the.
Oh, March
se-
6th.
Let's make sure your mic's unmuted as well, please.
Picky. Could we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Adler, absent. Commissioner Jamison,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Here.
Chair Williams.
Here.
Thank you.
Stand for the pledge. Johnny, would you like to lead us?
Begin. Folks, it's one, there's no comma
Yes, I know.
in that part. One nation under God. It's not one nation under God. It's one nation under God.
We can take a break while we're breathing.
No,
I think everybody knows that, but
But
they
they-
never pronounce it that way.
I know. Well, we're going to start doing it.
Can we approve the order of the agenda? Does anybody want to make any changes or?
I'll move approval.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Time for public comment. This is for items on the consent agenda or other items not on the agenda. Do we have anybody that would like to speak? Nobody here?
Oh, there's somebody here.
Yeah, but nobody that wants to speak. She's shaking her head.
Zipping her-
And that we have nobody on Zoom. Or is there anybody on phone? Would we know? Okay. Moving on. Consent items. Would anybody like to pull either of the items?
I'll move approval of consent items 3A and B.
We need to take public comment on the consent items. Oh, did we? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we did that.
Go ahead, Ben.
I have a couple of questions before we vote on that. Just questions. I don't want to pull anything.
What page?
Page 7. It says the planning division provided comments based on the last submitted plans. The project's moving forward. When did that happen?
Which one are you talking about?
For 670 Alamo.
670 Alamo Pintado, I'm sorry, Alamo Pintado. Second one from the bottom. Just curious
I'll have to,
when.
sorry, I have to rack my brain about that because I know it happened last year, but I think it was early in the year that it was after their project on Alisal Road got their building permits. They indicated that they wanted to move forward with their other project at 670 Alamo Pintado, and we provided comments. But I don't remember the exact date. It was last year.
Yeah, because I remember, I believe I met with one of the applicants on site. It's the one that has the hill that goes down.
Yes.
It's like subterranean. Yeah, I remember we did talk about that one on the,
Yeah, we approved it back in 2020. It's just curious whether it was still going to happen after we're into our third year now.
My understanding it is going to still happen. They're prioritizing the work at the Alisal Road project for those condos, and are slowly working on the 670 Alamo Pintado project, getting that through Plan Trek through the building division with the construction plans.
Okay. And then on the next page, page 8, the water wheel, project on hold. That one's been hanging fire forever. Is there any end in sight? Do they have any plans? Have they
Are
contacted
they
you?
in legal? This-
So that was the previous owner, not the current owner, that is suing the city. But we spoke with the current owner also last year, and they were wanting to go back to doing a hotel concept, but we don't have anything new from them.
No.
Lori and I actually just talked about the project today, and we're going to follow up with the current owner.
Okay. Because I've actually had people from the public asking me what was happening, and I didn't know. So we had a motion to approve
I
and
just have
seconded?
One other
Okay.
point then on the consent is Mortensen's Bakery ground sign looks good, so I think that turned out good.
Yeah.
Yes,
And that's it. My design.
Okay, so moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes
If I can make
4-0.
a slight comment here, that it should be noted that on the minutes that you just approved, that one of the votes was erroneously reported as a 5-0, when in fact Commissioner Peterson had recused himself. Thank you.
Good catch.
thank you.
Any ex parte communications on subjects for tonight? No? No public hearings, discussion items. Could we have staff report on item 6A, please?
Yes, so what you have before you is the housing element annual report, which we're required to do annually by section 65400 of the California Government Code. That section of the code requires that we provide an update as to the implementation of the general plan to the legislative body, and also has very detailed data that we need to provide to the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, regarding our implementation or how we are adhering to our RHNA, our Regional Housing Needs Allocation Goal. With the report that we are hoping to submit by April 1st, that covers the reporting year of 2022. And the way that breaks down when it comes to the RHNA is that up until June 30th, that counts towards our 5th cycle RHNA, which is the RHNA that just ended. And then anything past June 30th counts towards our 6th cycle RHNA, or the new one. That's the RHNA and the housing element that we're currently in draft, that's been submitted to HCD, that we're doing all the work on with the GPAC, the General Plan Advisory Committee. So this is just the report that we submit to HCD. We're bringing it before this body, and we have to take it before council next. So we're bringing the data to you to see if you have any questions, any changes you want to see before we take it to council. And our recommendation is that you approve the submittal of the annual progress report to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research and to the State Department of Housing and Community Development. And I'm here for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I have a couple of suggestions. On page 19, where it talks about section 65-400B, the second sentence, I think it should be in this section 4, not faux.
Okay.
And on the next page, on H and I, where it talks about units that received a building permit or 27 units, should it be
Or,
and?
Okay.
And then on the next item, it says there was one project that we approved. Should it say that was approved rather than we?
Noted. Thank you, Chair.
And on page 26, item 7, under completed, at the very last sentence, it says, as needed 2-4. Should 2 come out of there?
Yes.
or the 4. It doesn't make sense to have both of them there.
Yeah.
So I'll let you decide what you want. On page 27, the next page, item 13, it says under time frame ongoing, but under status, it says completed. So is it completed or is it ongoing?
I think that in the housing element, there's a program section, and that indicates what your time frame is for completing it during the planning cycle for that housing element. So I think that's what that column is referring to, is what was the established
Not the
deadline for
actual
it.
status.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But can I interrupt on that also, because I'd marked that. We haven't changed the zoning yet, have we? I know the general plan, the GPAC got together and it was suggested that we allow multiple use in not just the TRC, but also in the PO and also in the C2. But we still have to change that zone. So I don't know if completed is correct or it is proposed and moving forward. I don't know the wording, but it's got to come to us to vote it, and then it's got to go to city council to zone it, or am I incorrect?
I'll follow up to see what happened during the planning cycle, because this is for the 5th cycle,
Previous.
which was from 2015 to 2022. So I'll check to see what happened.
Then we did not allow
Yeah.
mixed use, because that was our big proposal at GPAC.
Yeah.
We're gonna allow it over offices and down in Nielsen's, anywhere,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So we just need to correct that. Yep.
Okay. I have that
Plus, we'll
circled.
look better on the new project.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Big
to
proponent of-
your point about the complete, I see that on the previous page, some of the items had been changed to complete. So for consistency, we'll do that as well.
Okay. And then on page 28, the last item, under the program description, it says current and future needs for a homeless or transient. It should say transient, or what does the or transient mean?
It'd be transient. Oh, I see.
Just,
Item 21.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just got cut
Yeah.
off because of the spacing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. For homeless or transient individuals. Yeah. Yes.
So that was all I had.
Thank you. It's always helpful to have another set of eyes.
And we haven't taken this out to public comment yet, so I don't know if, I don't have any slips. Nobody here wants to speak on it, nobody online. So we'll bring it back. Any further discussion, or if not, can I get a motion to approve to send it on to the city council?
I so move.
Yep, second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Moving on to item 6B.
Yes, so we had discussed this at the last meeting in February when you received your handbooks, that there is a current set of rules that I just realized in the attachments, it should say 2003 Planning Commission rules, not 2008. So, but we had an existing set of Planning Commission rules from 2003, and we had indicated to you all that we were wanting to update them. So that's what this item is. So these are the 2023 Planning Commission rules and procedures. As indicated in the staff report, a lot of it is clarification of language to include a lot of language and guidance from Rosenberg's, for example. The most substantive changes were in a few sections. So one, the previous rules indicated that no specific member could serve as chair for more than 2 years. We have amended that. There are no term limits, however, commissioners are discouraged from serving as chair for more than 2 consecutive years. We also changed Roberts, so there was a mention of Roberts rules in the 2003 Planning Commission rules. We changed that to Rosenberg's to be in alignment with what the council has adopted. And then the last one is there was a mention of the timeframe needed to give to you all regarding any changes to the rules, and that in the previous rules was 5 days. We've changed that to be in alignment with the Brown Act, which allows us to provide you items prior to 72 hours before the meeting. So we just wanted to clean things up for consistency's sake, and to add more clarity. We think that the training was very helpful last week, and we wanted to get that for you in a guidebook. So that is what you have before you.
Thank you. Any comments before we go to public? No comments. We'll take it out to the public. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for discussion. Anybody have anything they'd like to discuss or?
Looks pretty clear to me.
Yeah, and then I remember we talked about Jack maintaining chairship, even though it's,
Yeah.
I don't want to say unethical, but I don't think anyone really had a problem with it. So is that clarified, Sophia, on this, with this whole update right here?
That's why we
They
changed
did
it.
some really
Yeah.
neat wordsmithing on that, I think.
Yeah, it's now not a 2-year term limit. It's 2 years or 2 consecutive terms, are encouraged, so that we still encourage rotation of chairship, but there's no specific term limit anymore. Yeah.
Okay, well, I have, as usual, have a couple of.
We appreciate it.
Page 35, under staff representation, where it says, as described below, where is it described below?
I believe, Chair, that it's referring to the section on special meetings.
Which is section 3B2.
So we can.
So we
change-
can- yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
that's what I thought, and so, given that you confirm that, that special section says 3 commissioners, and here it says 2. Is it 2 or 3?
I think we went back and forth on that, one of the things that we changed last minute.
So,
Yeah.
so this is an item that we went back and forth about. My argument was that it's 3 of you that makes up a quorum. So I was thinking that we'd change that just to be in alignment with that. However, there's no fast and hard rule, right? Yeah, I mean, y'all are setting the
think-
rules, so it's up to you.
I'd like to suggest that it be 2.
Okay.
Because if we're meeting here and have a special meeting, we can get 3, but if 2 commissioners outside of the meeting want to request a special meeting, they could do it, rather than, and because of Brown Act, they couldn't get together with 3 to discuss it. So I think 2 is the more appropriate number here.
That's great.
That's a really good point.
Yep.
I think I was thinking people independently thinking that they needed a special meeting, but you're right. If they need to confer at all, it's better to have it be a 2.
And along that line, I was leaning toward 3 because I thought it was harder to call special because it's only 24-hour notice, which is really quick. But I'm fine to go with the 2. It's just, boy, 24 hours. I mean, 2 could get together and request it, and you got to do it tomorrow, and you don't get a quorum, I guess you don't have it. But, boy, I feel there was a special meeting, and I couldn't make it because of short notice. Is 24 kind of a standard deal, though?
Yeah, that's set by the
That
Brown
is.
Act.
All right, well, then it is.
And it says, it can be more. It says it can't be less.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, that is an option that you could express a preference in here for greater notice for special meetings if you wanted to. I mean, we couldn't change the Brown Act requirements, obviously, but there's a lot of things in here where you're expressing that you'd like it to go, this way. So if you do want to add a line that says, preferably 48 hours notice or 72 hours notice or something, you can do that.
I would like to see it, preferably 48, just because 24 is really tough on schedules. to me.
Yes, I agree.
It's tough getting back from Hawaii.
Yeah. Right. I don't have a problem with that. It's-
No, I don't either.
Yeah, so I think we should leave the, the requirement for personal service has to be at least 24 hours because that's the Brown Act, but we can add language that says, that commissioners who are calling special meetings should, endeavor to give at least 48-hour notice, something like that. So it expresses a preference, but we still are consistent with the Brown Act.
What was
With
the other one that required 72 hours notice? That we
That's a
were saying?
regular meeting.
Okay.
So,
Like this one.
Yeah, so, well, that's a special meeting because it could be like an emergency or something.
Right.
Okay, got it, yeah.
yeah, a special meeting under the Brown Act, though, is any time that's not your right. So any meeting that you all have that's not on the first Monday of the month
Right.
will be a special meeting. And so we don't have to give as much notice under the Brown Act, but often we know much more in advance. They're usually not, exigent circumstances. And, like, for example, even when you are meeting with the city council on, a general plan amendment thing, that's technically a special meeting, but you know about it well in advance.
Right.
Yeah, it's the minimum notice requirement under the Brown Act.
Then one other, probably nit, same page, in the last paragraph, under absences, it says the mayor, in their discretion. I've never heard that. Should it say at their discretion?
Sure.
Yeah, I was pointing that out, Joni. You missed 2 meetings here before the mayor. It's like going to the principal's office.
Oh, geez.
Talk about going to the principal's office.
I know.
May I ask a question, Jack, if
Oh,
you're
sure.
done? On quorum, I don't know if this is redundant, but the basic says 3 members of the commission shall constitute quorum. Should it be stated that there's 5 seats on the dais to begin with, or is that just something that's not to the point or doesn't?
So it does under number of commissioners, which is section 2A on page 34. It says the number of commissioners, the planning commission of the city of Solvang shall consist of 5 members appointed by the city council.
Yeah, it says that right up front,
Okay, yeah.
after purpose.
Yeah, okay. Chelsea's going to add a little 5 in parentheses there.
Just for consistency.
So thank you.
Make it stand out.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Hi.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Sorry, I was with Joan Hartman. Come in and see what you guys are up to.
on page 38, where it talks about public comment, and it addresses opening public comment for consent items separately from the agenda. Could we combine those and just make it so it says what we actually do? Like today, we open public comment for consent items and items not on the agenda. Where this says that we do one and then we do the next.
Yes, so you can do it either way. So other commissions that I've seen have at the top of the evening, they have a public comment period on anything not on the agenda, and then when they get to the consent items, they also have a separate public comment there. I think the benefit of that is that it's a little more intuitive maybe for the public, that when the specific consent items are before the body, that now they get a chance to comment rather than having to catch that before we get to the consent item on the agenda, they have to note a comment, even though we're going to tell them it might be a little.
So then we should change our agenda
Yes,
wording, we should change one or the other
right.
to make them consistent.
So if the rules are approved this way, then yes, the agenda would be changed to reflect that the comment period at the top would be for just things not on the agenda.
So I'm going to jump in because we're actually implementing an agenda management system, and the template that we currently have has already been sent to them, and they're programming it into the system. And they hard code it, yeah.
The way it is now.
To have it the way it is now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look under our agenda, number 2, it says a public may address the commission on items not on the agenda and on consent.
Right,
Yeah.
that was my point.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're
But
just
our
saying, can we
rules are
do it
contradicting that.
because it's supposed to be 2 separate motions?
Well,
Right.
it doesn't, the Brown Act doesn't say like how your agenda has to be ordered.
Right.
So it's not a violation or anything.
Just
Yeah,
Speaking of consistency.
it should be consistent, you're right. And I wasn't aware of the timing with the hard coding on the agenda management system. So I think we should make the rules adjust to fit what the agenda is going to look like. So yeah, we'll make that change. Thank you.
On page 41, at the top of the page, item E, I could just use some clarification on, this is complaints, personal remarks regarding commissioners or or staff during public hearing or discouraged. Complaints should be submitted in writing or presented verbally as a separate item on the agenda. So when would that occur? Would have to occur if somebody's going to add something to the agenda. Has to occur before we approve the agenda.
Yeah, I think this is just encouraging.
I've never heard of this happening, but
Right. This is more like a rule of decorum. So if somebody came up to speak on during any public comment period and was, just picking one of you out or one member of staff out to say really personal remarks and make a complaint about them that's not related to the agenda item, that is something that we're trying to explain in the rules is not really an appropriate use of that public comment period or testimony time, and we're encouraging people to submit a written comment about the staff or commissioner ahead of time in writing, or at the public comment period when on non-agenda items, that might be a time to raise it in the meeting. But this is not a prohibition on doing that. It's just stating the expectations of decorum and to suggest that if there are comments along that line that, providing a written complaint is more appropriate than doing so in the middle of a different discussion at a public meeting.
okay, thank you.
So is that point, would the chair just bring that point up to whoever, because that's I'm assuming it's a public or someone from the public.
That's
saying,
kind of, yeah.
I don't like the way you guys handle this is not, so then he would say, hey, just put it in writing and we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, and so Chair Williams, it would be your discretion how you wanted to, police that. Certainly, we have to be careful to make sure that everyone is able to publicly speak and make comments. We don't want to be unduly restrictive of people's ability to comment to the body. But at some point, it strays from allowing us to have an effective meeting. And so this is supposed to help give you some guidelines you could point to if you feel someone's getting out of order in a comment.
So I could just say that's really not appropriate at this time. Please put your comments in writing and submit them to the commission, something like
Right.
that. Okay.
I would
And-
still probably give them their 3 minutes just because,
Oh, yeah, I mean-
but yeah.
And then I'm going to also mention this because there'll be a change, but for item H,
Yeah.
Anna Marie pointed out the meaningfully considered, if they're submitted, they have to be considered, so. Her suggestion is taking out meaningfully.
Sorry, I think that we want to keep that in because this is not to say that we're not going to provide them to the commission. It's saying that if you basically it's saying if you give things to the commission very last minute, there's a chance you all won't be able to read and absorb them, even though they're going to
Blue
be
folders we sometimes get.
right. Like we're going to provide them to you. You will have an opportunity to see them, but it's a matter of just fact that if you provide like a 30-page filing the night before, it's not going to be as meaningfully considered as otherwise. So I do actually think we need to keep that in there.
Do you want to participate in the conversation?
If the agenda's been posted and we receive subsequent materials from the public, in order for us to provide it to the body, a majority of the body, we would have to make it public to the, available to the public at the same time. That would entail republishing the agenda. And if you're getting emails and communications all throughout the day, there has to be some sort of cutoff, or we'd be constantly updating and republishing the agenda. So I think after the agenda, my take is after the agenda's been published, that all these communications are gathered and then presented at the meeting, so the public and the body gets them at the same time. This Friday deadline actually is creating a scenario where if we do publish on the Wednesday as expected, then we have those extra 2-3 days where the public could start emailing, and then we're using staff time to update the agenda.
So if I can, I'm going to disagree a little bit, Anna Marie, because people can submit things at any time before a meeting. We can't control when they submit it, and we will provide whatever is submitted to the commission. We can collect them and provide them at the meeting to, avoid the problem. This does not change when people can submit it. All it's saying is that if you submit it before that deadline, then the commission is going to have a better opportunity to meaningfully consider it. But if you submit it after that, then we're not necessarily going to be giving it to them like immediately after you submit it, right? Like we will give them the blue folder at the meeting. So
And that's
can
what the
change
next
the
paragraph
deadline.
says.
but the meaningfully considered I want to keep in there. I put that in there for a reason.
Okay.
To me, it's a little confusing, different wording. On the second paragraph, if written submissions are submitted within the 72, and I use the word, and maybe it's not the correct word, but I read it and go, I don't get it. It's before and then it's after. Maybe it should say, regardless if written submissions are submitted, you can still give them. But because it sounds like, wait, did I have to do it before by noon? But then next one it says, if it's less than 72, you're going to get them. But I know what we're saying. You can do it either way.
We're
And
trying to encourage people
we're
to
trying
submit it
encourage.
early.
But maybe regardless, if written submissions are submitted, we're going to give them to everybody. Just, if it was me, I'd be going, wait, I'd walk in and go, can I give this then or not? No, you can. Or in any event, or something to preference that, because it says absolute. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there to make it again clear.
Yeah, you took the thoughts out. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But I was also thinking, it says written submissions must be filed. And I'm thinking instead of, it sounds like it's a hard deadline for someone, but everyone has an opportunity to speak. I feel like it's making it not inviting for people to come. It had to be submitted by 12 o'clock, so I can't.
Or should be.
Yeah, because
should
I
be
think
submitted by
because
then?
some
Or-
there are people that catch wind of things after it's posted, or after people have time to talk. So maybe they do want
So
to make their voices heard. So
think
I
the
think it's
the
fair to-
distinction is the things that are provided before that cutoff are going to be provided like in the agenda packet to you all in advance of the meeting. After the 72-hour, after that cutoff, you'll get it at the meeting. So we're not going to be like a rolling basis sending you guys things over the weekend when they're submitted, because that, Anna Marie's not here on Saturday or Sunday. She's not going to be doing that. So that's the intent, is to encourage people to submit things early so it's all part of the agenda packet. You all have time to consider it. But of course, we want to honor the fact that no matter when somebody submits comments, it will come before you. We will give you the commission the materials, but we're going to do that like in your blue folder. at
Can
the
that
meeting.
paragraph then start, the written submissions, the first one, for written submissions to be included in the agenda packet, they must be filed with the city clerk by 12 o'clock. Again, just clarifying what you're saying.
And the
If-
deadline needs to be different for that, is what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that once we post the agenda, they can submit comments anytime, 3 weeks ahead, 5 minutes ahead.
Right.
But once we've posted the agenda, if we get any public comment from the public, if the action is for us to submit that to you, it entails republishing the agenda.
Well, we can publish the comments to the agenda as a supplement. You can keep the agenda as it is.
It's not going to work with the agenda management system.
Okay, but this does not say that you have to immediately give that to the commission at any, like, it doesn't make you give it to them.
No, but I believe as, from the public's point of view, they're going to think if they gave it to me by 12, that it's going to be in their hands before the meeting and not part of the blue folder.
Well, I think that's like an implementation thing that we need to figure out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't need to be spelled out in the
No.
rules here.
But the public should know that. I mean, regardless, they'll get it, and we still sit up here and we still look at
Yeah.
anything that's submitted, because
The
I read
difference
it.
is, will it be part of the agenda packet that anybody can see prior to the meeting?
Versus available here
Or
and
just
posted.
Yes.
available
Sh-
at the meeting?
So shouldn't that wording be in there then at that point? Just say it's not going to be in the packet, and
I thought that's what.
anything submitted
Suggesting.
Get to, yeah.
after that period will just be handed in person and will be made available public at the
Yeah.
meeting.
I think we can
Yeah.
reword this to start with, like, all comments will be provided, but the whole point of the deadline wasn't to say, to start to explain in the rules how and when public comments are going to be given to you physically or electronically. It was more to just encourage early submission by saying that, as a practical matter, if you don't get it to the commissioners by Friday, they're, like, they have less time to review it.
Probably sooner than that, probably
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah, or whatever the timing is, that they're not going to be meaningfully considered, or we can't guarantee they're going to be meaningfully considered because it doesn't give you all an opportunity to review them very well. So we can play with that wording to make it clearer that all comments will be provided, but if you provide them before this cutoff, they're going to be a better opportunity for the commission to meaningfully consider them, and they should be, so encouraging people to get it before that deadline.
Yeah, you should word that so it's a little bit broader because, reading this, the way it's written, somebody could come in at 11:59 and say, I'd like the commission to consider this. But by that time, you've already published the agenda. But it isn't clear to somebody reading this that it has to be like the day before or that morning, like 8 a.m. on Friday or something.
Right.
I think it just needs some, I understand what you're trying to do, but
Yeah.
I think to somebody on the outside looking in, it might be confusing to them.
If that's the case, are we going to vote on something like this tonight, or should we have them rewrite it and the next meeting we can finalize it and approve it?
It's
I
up
trust
to you. It's up to you if you feel like you've given us specific enough direction to carry it out, or if you want to see it, all written out again, we can also come back with it.
I just don't want to delay it if it's needless.
It's your commission rules. It's not.
I think we've
No.
given them the outline.
Correct.
If you want them to bring it back.
No, that's
by
fine.
all agree.
I'm not, either way,
Okay.
it just sounds like it's kind of this, not wishy-washy, but we're going back and forth and just maybe might want to review it one more time just to look at it, but I'm indifferent either way.
I think it's helpful, though. It's a,
Yeah.
yeah. So the options are I could work with Chair Williams on it, just to have him review our revision, or we can just put it on consent for the next meeting, if you want to see it.
I think that'd be fine.
That's fine. So
That way
would
it
that be
gets
part of the motion that
Yep.
move approval pending Chair Williams working with staff to clarify that one, notice requirements on public comments or
Yeah,
A
and I
written vote.
believe, is it resolution? Yeah, you'd
Just
you'd have to read the resolution
Yeah.
number and say
clarification of
everything, but
wording, right? Just
Yeah.
to make sure it's clear.
Then I have one last, I think, last one, here, one last one. On page 43, item 5B, it says the rules may be amended at any meeting of the commission by a majority, 3 affirmative votes.
You mean 2B?
The bottom, 5B, way down.
Oh, 5 here.
5B.
The Roman numeral 5. Thank you.
Yes.
yes.
And I'm just wondering if that's consistent with, under voting, item C, B and C. B says that if you're adopting an amendment to the general plan, specific plan, or zoning ordinance, that at least 3 commissioners are required to vote on it. But C says, it just says, as I read it, the majority of those present, which could be 2 people. So does 5B fall under
The 3 or?
voting B or C?
Yeah.
So as drafted, it's more like B in that it requires 3, so a majority of the body, not a majority of present and voting.
Okay.
But, you know, we can change that if the majority of you would like it to be those majority of those present and voting. I think the idea is to
Make it
make it
harder.
a little harder, yeah.
Okay, but we can just leave it that way.
Okay.
I was just trying to be consistent with what
Yeah.
B said and C said.
Yeah, so B in voting, that's by state law is set that you have to have at least 3, not just the majority of present and voting. So that's why that's in there. But then for any other
So
regular.
we're just setting our own rule.
Right, yeah, to do that.
Okay, that's all I had.
Can I, just a clarification, not putting in a rule. So somebody shows up with written documents that night. They don't want to speak. They just want to hand it in. We all get it, say in the blue file beforehand or whatever. Do you make copies for other people? Do you have to make one
Yes.
copy or 100 copies, or how do you handle that?
Yeah,
That's
so you
kind
make
of a bit of a mess.
We make a copy and then it gets posted online too, after the meeting. We have a time period after the meeting to post it.
It's
Okay.
When
usually
it
in
show,
a
when
book
it's,
out.
right, and that is also where it goes. But when somebody literally hands it to us at the meeting,
Right.
we have until I think the next day, right, to get it posted.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Is your mic on?
I'll get the document, and let's say they only give us one, and there's 5 of you there. I won't pass it out to anyone after the meeting or early the next day. I will go ahead and post it to the website and email all of you at the same time, so you and the public have it at exactly the same time. That's the goal.
Should that be stated then?
and
If at the meeting you would like to present a document to the planning commission, 5 copies or 6 copies, one for
9.
the clerk, or 9 for everyone here, yeah.
I mean, we could add that.
9 copies shall be provided
But
or something.
the public still would not have it at the same time as you.
Right, but we could see it as on the
Well,
dais and.
I mean, if there's a copy available to be viewed at the meeting, I think we could say the public has access to it. But we can do that. If somebody doesn't come with copies, we still have to accept it because Brown Act would control. But we can certainly say that our body's preference or our rules are that you bring X number of copies. It's just similar to when you submit the comments, we can't say that we won't accept a comment, within a certain amount of time frame. So if they come with 1 copy, we'll take it, Anne Marie will copy it, and we'll distribute it. But it'd be nice if they came
They
with
do,
more
yeah, 'cause
copies.
sometimes they do come to the meetings and they
Yeah.
have information they handed out
And
at
I
the meeting.
and I
So.
But that
promptly
wouldn't-
take it right out of their hands.
Yeah.
But-
so-
That wouldn't,
Okay.
wouldn't apply to somebody who came up in public speaking and read a letter and then just handed that to the clerk. They wouldn't have to have 9 copies of it because everybody heard what was in there. It's only if it's something that wasn't verbally or written.
I think an
like a
overhead projector is in
plans,
order.
something like that. Wait, what?
I said, I think an overhead projector is in order. Everyone can see it simultaneously. What do you think, Mark?
Dr. Graves.
Okay.
Has to be on a clear trans.
Yeah.
Anybody like to take a stab at making a motion on this?
Sure. I move to approve PC Resolution Number 23-02, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Solvang, California, amending and restating the Planning Commission rules and procedures and making a determination of exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act with the understanding that Chairman Williams will work with staff to reword Section 2H regarding written submissions and timing thereof,
And other corrections as,
and other corrections as discussed this evening.
I'll second it.
okay. Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nobody opposed, passes 4-0.
You're so good at doing that on the fly, Aaron.
He is a lawyer.
You are.
Was a lawyer.
Okay,
It's an
moving
ordinance
on.
flyer.
Any planning commission comments?
You know, I had couple comments. Just, we talked briefly about it. I applaud staff for working with our code enforcement officers. I know it's not typically our preview, but on signs and things, that's to be applauded. I had a question on, I'd heard a rumor, and maybe staff can comment to it, that city council or the city planning department is considering or looking at allowing recreational marijuana use in what we had designated before as medical marijuana use, and I just didn't know, it's rumors only, and if, should it have come to the planning commission first for us to say, gosh, let's find a CUP, or should it go to city council straight ahead, or is it appealed, and it's just rumors only. And then the last one question I have on the design, on the GPAC design element, the GPAC is still meeting to do some of the other elements on our general plan, correct? Somebody asked that too, and I said, yes, I thought so.
So for the medical marijuana, we're going to have to put that on the next agenda. So we will do that.
To the planning commission.
We can put it on for a discussion item and staff comments. I just want to not get into an in-depth discussion without it being on the agenda. So
No, that's all I was
Yeah.
asking was procedural. I'd heard it was going straight to city council, and I thought it would come to us
It
first.
did.
It did go to city.
Oh, and they kicked it back to us then.
They
Okay.
asked for more information and
Yeah,
yeah,
to be discussed at a later meeting.
Yes.
presentation.
Perfect.
yeah. Okay. Was that all you wanted to know?
Yeah, and just the GPAC is continuing on some of the elements we haven't really touched on.
Yes. So there are plans for the GPAC to continue. We're waiting to get updated elements from the consultants. And at that point, Roger, Lori, and I will work on when our future meetings are.
Perfect.
Sophia, and then we talked about tonight, meeting the state guidelines and everything, because I remember the last meeting from the prior planning commission session. Remember there was election cycle, all that stuff was up, so now we had to postpone, and there were penalties and everything. So are we on track for maintaining and?
So the deadline was February 15th of 2023 for the submission of an adopted certified housing element. We submitted a draft. So we met the deadline in that we submitted something by that date, but it wasn't an adopted housing element by city council. So that is in HCD's hands. They have 90 days to respond to us. We're expecting pretty lengthy comments based off of what we've seen from other jurisdictions. But that's where we are right now.
Okay.
We're waiting to hear back from them.
Thank you.
Anything else? I attended the Planning Commission training session up in San Luis Obispo, and all day. It was very good. It's too bad more of you couldn't have been there. It was very illuminating. HCD was there. And what they told us was that they were there with carrots, not sticks. But at the end of the meeting, they reminded us that they have sticks. And that, they will help on anything having to do with the housing element. And that was the number one topic of discussion through the whole meeting. I mean, they talked about the Brown Act and ethics and all that, but virtually every question had something to do with the housing element. And the woman who was presenting for HCD said, don't shoot the messenger. If you have a problem with what's being asked, take it up with your legislator. That they're just the in-between person, kind of like you.
That's what we tell everybody too.
Yeah. So, but it turned out to be a good meeting, and they sent me copies of all the slides and what have you, which I forwarded to Sophia, and if anybody's interested in looking at those, she can send them to you.
I have that to send to you all, and then we received an email today from the city of Santa Barbara regarding the American Planning Association Central Coast section. They're doing a 6-week training that they invited the planning staff and commissioners to, so I'll be sending all the info out together. I'm playing catch up from posting the agenda packet last week. So.
Okay.
Just last comment. Independent had a great article on how housing allocation, Goleta versus the county of Santa Barbara. So Goleta had to do their number, and then the county right outside the Goleta city boundaries talking about throwing in 3,000 or 4,000 or 200 or whatever units right there, and Goleta saying still affects our traffic and everything else. I say all that just as a cautionary tale that we sit in this little town. We're not Goleta. We don't have a lot of schmaltz, and here you've got us county boundaries right there, county boundaries right there, county boundaries right there. And this is coming down as you learn from more and more from Sacramento. They're just telling us, and talk to your legislatures, good luck, because when the stick really gets big and they tell you must do these things and the county's back's against the wall, we could see housing in places that we don't really want to see them. And we will have zero control over it.
Zero. Yep.
Anyway.
And they are currently updating their housing element as well. So they're going through the same process we are, if you want to get
Goleta or
involved.
Santa Barbara?
The
Both.
county. Everybody in Santa Barbara County had to submit their adopted housing element by the 15th. I know that the county had indicated they were going to be late. So they're doing the same process we are with the housing element.
Just a question regarding Commissioner Peterson's comments. Is that maybe this is something that should be brought up to city councils, like as far as, I remember the topic of annexation for either part of land outside towards Buellton, towards Ballard. Is that something that should be considered again, or because of that? So, I don't know.
So annexation's really in the purview of the city council, not so much the planning commission. Yeah.
He wants to say something.
Public comments closed, Jack.
It is.
We're also not engaging in a discussion on a non-agendized item.
Right. So, staff comments.
Yes. For your next meeting, we have 2 items tentatively. One, a potential code change. We've mentioned this before with the solar energy systems. Our Code requires that, especially those in the TRC, need to go before the Design Review Committee or the DRC, and that is not in alignment with state code. According to state code, they all need to be ministerially, not discretionarily approved. So we have to update the code to be in alignment with state law. So that, fingers crossed, is going to be at the next meeting. And then the Design Review Committee is going to revisit a multifamily project that came before them at their last meeting. And if it receives approval, it will be coming before you in April. And that's all we have right now.
Okay. Thank you. Then I guess we're adjourned at 6:55.